In Alaska, Donald Trump rolled out the red carpet for Vladimir Putin. Fighter jets, bombers, and even letting Putin ride in the presidential limo, a gesture typically reserved for allies, not adversaries. Despite the extravagant display, the summit yielded no ceasefire or agreement. Trump touted great progress, but the outcome was purely optics with no substance. In fact, Donald Trump got played by Putin, and that too in his own country. This is because by being hosted in the US, Putin shattered the image that Russia was a pariah on the global stage. No European or Ukrainian officials present meant Putin was seen engaging directly with Washington, not as a sidelined aggressor, but as an equal. Trump hyped great progress, yet no binding agreements were signed, nothing on Ukraine, arms control, or energy security. Putin gave up nothing, but still gained legitimacy. Putin appeared calm, collected, and statesmanlike, while Trump came across as reactive, and in geopolitics, perception itself is power. But while he was busy playing host, he may have just lost America's most important partner in Asia. For 25 years, Washington's grand strategy was simple: build up India as a wall against China. But in just a few months, Trump's tariffs and missteps have not only pushed India closer to Russia, but also to China, a nightmare scenario for America. And why is it a nightmare situation for America? This is because India could deepen energy and trade ties with Russia and even China. That means less reliance on US-aligned partners like Saudi Arabia, weakening US control over global energy security. Trump wanted to corner India, but instead, Putin turned the tables. Moscow didn't just condemn Trump's move, they responded with action, a 5% crude discount for India and an agreement to expand rupee-ruble trade. That means cheaper oil and more Indian goods being exported in return. America has been hoping to make India its biggest defense market. But alienating India means more Russian arms deals, more joint ventures with France. That means billions lost for the US defense industry and a weaker military bond. India standing side by side with Russia and not fully opposing China signals to other countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America that the US isn't the only game in town. This weakens America's global leadership narrative. India sits on the Indian Ocean, the choke point of global trade and energy flows. If India leans neutral or toward a Russia-China axis, the US Navy loses its most natural ally to secure the region against Beijing. Now, let's dive deeper to fully grasp the strategic blunder the US just made. Soon after America's unfair tariffs were imposed on India, things began to shift dramatically. Indian and Chinese officials recently met and are now exploring ways to mend ties. For decades, the US had been preparing India to stand as a wall against China, the biggest bone in America's throat. But with this rapprochement, things are shifting. The only country with the scale to match China is India, and this mending of ties has effectively reversed 25 years of US progress. Trump grew spooked by BRICS after reports they might introduce their own currency to ditch the dollar. Interestingly, India was the only BRICS country opposed to replacing the dollar, since such a move wouldn't serve India's interests either. Now, with Beijing and New Delhi talking again, Chinese officials have at times even sided with India against Trump's tariffs. This is a dramatic shift on China's side. But Trump's worldview is business over geopolitics. The problem is, the world doesn't work like that. Take Russia as an example. It's the most sanctioned country on earth, yet the war didn't stop. Moscow has lost countless soldiers and equipment, but it won't quit unless it secures at least some of its demands. Business deals alone cannot end wars. From India's perspective, the US has never been seen as a family-like ally, the way Canada is, or even as close as the EU. So when Trump slapped tariffs even on America's closest friends, India knew it had no chance of being spared. Before this tariff saga, India was deepening ties with Washington, buying US defense systems, and even approving a mega fighter jet engine deal. Yet those engines haven't been delivered. Washington blames supply chain issues, but in reality, it looks like pressure tactics. That's no way to treat a strategic partner. The final nail came with the visit of Pakistani General Asim Munir. This is the same man linked to the Pahalgam terror attack, and yet he was hosted by Trump at a lunch. Later, Munir again visited the US, where he openly threatened nuclear war, saying Pakistan could take half the world down, right there on American soil. He even threatened to blow up India's dams, an act that qualifies as a war crime. India condemned his remarks as unfortunate, but the real shock was that this happened in a friendly country, and Washington's response was silence. The US said it was aware of Munir's statements, but chose not to react. For Trump, a good business deal is a win, no matter who he deals with. He's even willing to side with Putin if it means stopping the war. Ending the war would indeed be good for the world, but the way Trump tries to achieve it, by alienating US partners, risks creating a long-term strategic setback that Washington may never recover from. He's openly asked for a Nobel Prize, but his attempts have already backfired. He once tried to take credit for a supposed India-Pakistan ceasefire, which New Delhi categorically rejected, shattering that dream. If he can treat a friendly partner like India this way for personal gain, it's a troubling signal. Meanwhile, America itself looks unstable. Hardly a day passes without Trump dominating headlines. On tariffs, he does have some truth. The EU had higher tariffs in certain sectors, and he tied this to NATO, arguing Europe doesn't pay its fair share, while benefiting from US security. Yes, Washington runs a trade deficit with Europe. But economists emphasize a deficit isn't necessarily losing. Americans get cheaper goods, and US companies profit massively from operations inside Europe. So Trump's line that Europe takes advantage is more political rhetoric than hard economics. The bigger picture is that the US wants to maintain a unipolar world, with the dollar as the ultimate weapon of leverage. For decades, that system worked. But today, the world is moving toward a multipolar order, where influence is distributed across blocks in Asia, Africa, and Eurasia. This was once just a concept, but now it's accelerating, and ironically, Trump is speeding it up. He's shown Europe that it cannot put all its oranges in one basket. Countries will now seek multiple partners, multiple options. And this is where the India example matters most. It took Washington over 25 painstaking years to build India into a strategic partner, a process that strengthened further under Modi. But Trump has undone much of that trust. India, aware of this risk, never allowed the Quad to evolve into a formal military alliance. That forced the US to create AUKUS, which is already struggling to meet its commitments. Without India, the Quad is practically dead. It once had the potential to be the guardian of the Indian Ocean, but today, it looks dead in the water.